And now a story as crucial as it is provocative, something for everyone to think about. What if you knew that you were at risk for a devastating disease? How far would you go to keep from passing it on to your children? We're going to introduce you to a couple who used a procedure to make sure their daughter would not get a certain kind of cancer. They had her genes tested when she was nothing more than 8 cells in a petri dish. Look at the face, the blue eyes, the tiny feet.
Look, I made dirty feet.
When Chloe Kingsbury was born, she raised smiles, shouts of joy, and some questions.
Are they all gone?
No, it's fine.
There's more? Okay.
Chloe's father, Chad, carries a gene for a deadly genetic colon cancer that has stalked and killed 2 uncles, his mother, and his grandfather.
I've seen what this disease can do firsthand. I've held my mother's hand while she died. I look at my grandma every time I see her, and there's an emptiness there. I mean, she's lost all 3 of her children. And I couldn't do that.
Since he carries the gene, Chad has an 85% chance of getting colon cancer. His offspring, a 50% chance of inheriting the gene from him. But there is a new advance in genetics and reproductive medicine called pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, PGD. And this has allowed the Kingsburys to bring Chloe into the world without any fear she'll get the disease.
It's basically getting a diagnosis of an embryo prior to implantation or prior to pregnancy.
We can test the embryo, and we can test it with a single cell to see whether the embryo has any genetic abnormality or not.
The Kingsburys invited us to join them as they went through the process again for a second child at the Reproductive Genetics Institute in Chicago. They freely admit that despite the success with Chloe, going through the procedure is not an uncomplicated decision.
The whole thing sounded incredibly foreign, inexpensive, and, and then there was this whole debate going on about, do we really need to do this?
Here's how it works. It starts with in vitro fertilization, where Colby's eggs are retrieved from her ovaries.
Usually we would like to have about between 10 to 20 eggs.
16 of Colby's eggs are extracted. Each one is combined with Chad's sperm to form an embryo. The procedure is repeated 16 times, giving the lab 16 embryos to work with.
That's an optimal embryo.
Just a few days later, when the embryo has grown to just 8 cells, 1 cell is removed from each embryo for genetic testing. It's part of a procedure that can sound alarming to parents.
I always reassure patients that I don't want them to think when we pull the cell off that the baby is going to be missing an arm or some part of its body. It doesn't work like that. The embryo is essentially a blueprint that allows the formation of the whole pregnancy. That means the baby and the placenta and the gestational sac, all of that.
Just 5 days after the testing, we and the Kingsburys learned the results. Of 11 fertilized embryos, 3 have the gene, which leaves 8 healthy embryos. 8 potential children.
Yeah, sounds great.
2 embryos are transferred back into Colby, and the remaining ones will be frozen in case Chad and Colby want to try again. As of this point, she and Chad wait to see if she's pregnant with number 2 and reflect on the choice they made for Chloe and for her sibling and their lives.
You just want to make a happy life for your child, and I think that's all we're trying to do.
And we're joined now by Chad and Colby Kingsbury, and also a Cheerio munching Chloe, nonstop Cheerio munching, and our own medical editor, Dr. Tim Johnson. First of all, I think you have some news for us.
Yes, we are 5 months pregnant right now, so it did turn out to be a successful try this time.
And do we know if it's a brother or sister for Chloe?
We don't know. We decided to let that be a surprise.
Chad, this is a really complicated decision that you have to make. Going into it, were you sure from the very beginning that this is what you wanted to do?
No, it was real difficult for us. I mean, we go to church, we have family that, was thinking that it was expensive. I weighed the pros and cons of everything, and I couldn't pass that on to my daughter knowingly.
What is known about the percentage of risk?
I have about an 80 to 85% chance of getting colon cancer. I get screened regularly, so I'm trying to combat it as best I can. I just want, like anybody does, I just wanted a healthy kid and not have to go through the worries that I go through.
Some people equate it to terminating a pregnancy. What do you say in your heart?
We have a beautiful daughter, and we have another one on the way. I just don't, I don't see it that way. It's something that was right for us.
Everybody's going to look at it differently, yeah. And just as I think we have the right to do what we do, everybody has a right to their own opinion. And, this isn't for everybody. It was right for us.
Tim, a lot of people saying, here we are, it's designer baby time.
I think there's a big difference between selecting for eye color or height or athletic ability or appearance and choosing for potentially, and in some cases, a certain lethal disease like the genes for Huntington's, for example. Huge difference. And I think we're capable both professionally and societally of making that distinction. Now, there's a gray area in the middle where it's going to be more difficult. But this kind of decision, where you're talking about preventing colon cancer, to me is very clear.
Any of your family members object? Was everybody supportive?
No, not everyone was supportive. I think they wanted what was best for us, certainly. And, but it's so funny because the second she was born, it's like everyone forgot about that. It was just, after that, it was just, a couple having a baby, so.
Can I go to Chloe's house?
Okay. Can you go to Chloe's house? I think it's time for you to go to Chloe's house. Yeah. I think you've done very well getting up early in the morning. Thank you both.
Thank you.
So much. And thank you for coming forward. I know this had to be something you gave a lot of thought to.
Definitely. Thank you.